I met Rose when she first got to NACS. It was January 2011. And the reason I can remember that is because I started at NACS myself in June 15th, actually, 2010. She came approximately 6 months after I did. And, she had this laugh that was very infectious. It was very just loud, very loud. You could hear her down the hallway. But she was always just, Rose. She was just honest. And what I liked about Rose was, and I don't want to give away too much of the episode, but she kept it real with me on several occasions, and she allowed me to keep it real with her on multiple occasions. She would ask these just ridiculous questions when I first met her, these scenarios that would never happen in anyone's life, but she'd ask me these questions and either ask me, basically, a scriptural, meaning the Bible, a reference that they could either answer that question or why it was so, or just a challenge if I even knew what I said I knew. And I don't know why I was cool with that, but I was. And, a friendship blossomed over the last decade plus. Been to weddings with her and her husband, and my wife, Shelly, her husband, DJ, and, shared good times, bad times at NACS, as well as good times, bad times in our personal lives in terms of loss of life. On both sides, as far as our friendship, we've lost people that are very close to us or very dear to us. And that, and as it will in many relationships, it will either make you or break you. So I've seen Rose bounce back from some tough ones. That's why I wanted her to be part of this process, is just because I think she has a story to tell that is one of being here, then kind of feeling like she's here, and then kind of going right back up to here and beyond where she ever was before. So again, not wanting to give too much of it away, but enjoy the episode of In Your Atmosphere, and this one starring Rose Johnson. Each of us has a figurative atmosphere. Those individuals we choose to spend our time with. But we need to ask ourselves, are those people willing to celebrate with us on our best day and stand with us on our worst day? Have they provided you with life lessons that can serve as a protection for you? My atmosphere is full of those whom I choose to surround myself with because they make me a better person. My name is Donovan Woods, and the purpose of this podcast is to shine light on some of their stories. I've personally either overcome challenges or I'm continuing to endure based on what I've learned from each and every one of them. Welcome to In Your Atmosphere. Miss Johnson, how are you?
Hi, Donovan. I am good. It's so good to see your face. I feel like it's been a while since we've spoken face to face like this.
It has. We just, for the audience that's watching, we used to work together. This is being recorded in late 2021. I had changed jobs just a few weeks before this was recorded, and Rose and I think we met back in January 2011. Is that when you started at NACS?
That's when I started at NACS, January 18th, and it snowed on my first day, and I still came to work.
You wouldn't do it now. But anyway, what I remember about that person was you were energetic, you had ideas, you were kind of quiet, kind of kept to yourself, but just kind of figuring things out, which is normal. But, here's a question for you. I'm going to kind of go back to that person that you were when I first saw you, and then there's a middle part of Rose, and then there's who you are now. Why do you think I chose you to be part of this podcast series?
Why do I think that you chose me?
Yes.
Well, I feel like over the last going on 2 years that our relationship has developed a lot. I mean, we were friends even before the pandemic, but I think that it grew even closer. And I remember that there was something that you said to me in particular that I felt like really helped me to be more open to your friendship. And you said I was a terrible you said I was a terrible friend.
I was hoping you would say it. Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
You told me I was a terrible friend. And you said that, you reach out to me and I take forever to answer you, or sometimes I don't answer and it feels one sided. And I was like, oh my gosh. It's like, well, he might have a point. And so after that, I felt like I tried to live up to the word friend, right? And so I feel like you asked me to be on here because our friendship grew closer. And we talked about a lot of things within these last 2 years, that just being vulnerable and open and struggles that we were going through. And so because of that, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Those are good. That's good. That's not wrong. There's no wrong answer to that question. I kind of asked that same question to everyone that's on this series, but I'll tell you exactly why, and I'll kind of keep it brief. But the one thing that always stood out to me was the time you pretty much, I think I was able to call you out then, the one reference you're bringing up, because you called me out years prior to that. And basically just called me out on my ignorance. Just, you were direct, you were kind of upset, like literally upset, just because you made me question my approach to success. You made me question, do I have to lower or dumb myself down or speak less of myself or make myself a clown to just be acceptable or presentable to people? And there's another way of saying that, but I'll keep that. That's like the PC way of saying that. And I won't say it hurt. It was shocking that you felt comfortable enough to just say it, and you just went in. And I remember laughing it off and being like, oh, it's what you got to do. But it stuck with me to this day. And this is like probably 8-9 years ago. This is like when we first met. And I just always think about that now, because you always help me to think about just being genuine. Being yourself shouldn't be less, you shouldn't have to reduce who you are to be accepted. You shouldn't have to reduce who you are, whether your race, your sex, gender, your anything, for people to like you, to accept you, and to advance professionally. And that is something that, of course, I knew, but to hear someone just say it stung a little bit. And I appreciated that. Not only that, it's been your willingness to really question your own approach. I won't go into the details here, but just I think about your relationship with a family member that you felt like it was stable for years, and it kind of became like, what's going on? But just, you kept trying, and you were willing to just maybe change your own approach. That person's, I don't know where that stands now, but I'm just saying that to say you're humble enough to see that maybe it's me, and you would try to change yourself. And the last thing I'll say is just your ability to kind of take feedback. And then the one that really, 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 the last thing, your growth in the last probably 2 to 3 years, and I say that not like I'm like a big brother or anything. We're pretty much the same age, but
I'm younger.
The person I saw. You're actually older?
I'm
I think
younger.
Me and Darren, your husband, are younger? Okay, you think so. All right. You got the cooler glasses, definitely. You look younger. How about that? You pushed yourself beyond your comfort level. And I think as we get older, that's harder to do. And you kind of came into, when I met you in 2011, being here, and then kind of just, I won't say you were beat down. That's not the case at all. But just, you weren't putting out all the ideas you wanted. And so you kind of became okay with that. You became okay with, hey, this is my job. This is who I am. Boom. And I'd love to know, for you to tell people, you don't do it every week or even every month right now. Why did you, or how did you get to the point where you were able to kind of come out of your shell and to launch your podcast series that you had going for a while? First, start there. How and why did you do that?
Well, first, I do want to go back to what you were saying about being yourself, right? Your authentic self. And one thing that I did really appreciate about you was, one of the first things I learned about you was that you were a Jehovah's Witness. And I learned that because, when we would talk, you would ask me if it was okay to share scriptures. And sometimes I'd see you with your Bible and stuff like that, which I appreciated. I grew up in church. And so, at that point in my life, I wasn't active and, even questioning whether, am I a Christian? Am I not a Christian? What does that mean? That type of thing. And I did appreciate that you shared that with me. You were very open about that part of your life. So I did gravitate towards you because of that. And that's why I felt open enough to be able to speak to you in a way that I could question things, right? Because I felt like when we would talk about regular everyday things and you bring it back to scriptures, and then I'd ask all these questions. And so I was like, okay, well, he's open to questions.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And so I started my podcast because, just like you said, I really felt like I lost my voice. Like when I started this job, I was coming from another job where it was the recession and people were cutting. They were cutting funds. They were cutting all types of things. And it was a job where you would come to work one day and there'd be a meeting. And then after the meeting, you don't see certain people anymore, but they don't tell you what's happening. You don't know. And so it created an environment where there was not a lot of trust and people would hoard work because you're afraid to let anybody know what you are or aren't doing, because then you might be out of a job. And so, yeah, it was awful. It was awful. And, some of my coworkers would leave and I would cry. I was happy for them, but I was like, I can't find a job and I need to get out of here. And so, I felt very ambitious at that point in my life because I needed to get out of there and I wanted to find something. And I was going on all these job interviews, and sometimes it was like for things that I didn't even want to do. I just wanted to get out. And I got to a point one time I was in an interview and I was so nervous because I was trying to make who I am fit with what they needed. And after that, I was like, you know what? I can't do this style anymore. I'm going to start interviewing these people because they need to be giving me what I need just as much as they want me to give them what they need. And so that change in mindset, it made me feel so empowered. And I go in and I'm asking all these questions and I want to know, I want to know what type of culture you have. I want to know how you mentor people. I just want to know what it's like to be an employee there. So I found the place where we met, and and I remember looking at the position and seeing the organization, and I'm like, this place is like, what kind of hole in the wall place is this going to be?
So hold on, let me do this for you so we can moving forward, because they're going to bring it back up again. We both work for the National Association of Convenience Stores, convenience retailing, fuel retailing, and for anyone watching this that's at NACS now or has been at NACS, it's a great place. I was there for 11 years. Rose, you will be hitting 11 years in a few months from now. So obviously we enjoyed it. We both have grown, but it's like every other job. There are things that you have to either adjust to, find your way around, and not so much leave because problems exist everywhere. So I think that's when you hear us talk about NACS here, it's not about NACS. It's about just life and the fact that you have to figure out how do you make this work for you. So, okay, now you continue. Don't feel like you're bashing anybody. By any means, you're not. Definitely.
Yeah, so, I was thinking it's going to be a little hole in the wall. And I get there and the office is beautiful. It's so beautiful. And so I go in and, I meet with people, and people have been there 10, 15, 20, 25 years. I'm like, oh, wow, this must be a really good place to work. People are here. And they've been here for a long time. Everybody I met was really nice. They gave me insight into what it would be like working there. They talked to me about assessments that they do to help collaborate and that type of thing. And then, I think I had 3 interviews, and maybe the third one was like taking some tests, like typing and stuff like that. Yep. And so I remember my third time coming, the garage attendant, G, he says to me, I've seen you come here. This is the third time now. And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get a job here. And he's like, oh, you're going to get it. I can tell right now. They're going to hire you and you're going to get it. And so I remember when I did get it and I told him, and he was like, see, I knew it. I told you. I knew you'd be back and I knew that they'd hire you. And he's still there and we have such a great relationship. But anyhow, at that time I was very ambitious. I had all these ideas and things that I wanted to get done, and I was able to get some of them done. But then I just felt like even in life, things were happening outside of work, things with relationships outside of work, things at home. My brother-in-law was murdered in 2016, and it just sucked a lot of my energy. And, I felt like I lost my voice. Like I really lost who I was. Sorry, it makes me a little emotional to go through this,
No, that was I remember when that happened. I didn't hear from you, but I heard from your boss at the time. Well, still your boss. And I remember just being stunned because at that time, at least in my life, I had never lost anyone to the way he was killed. And to say I've dealt with death my whole life, but that one, I didn't know what to say. So you even being able to bring it up, I think it's going to help a lot of people that listen, just knowing that tragedy can strike at any time in the worst way possible. And as far as losing your voice, that's everything you said builds up to, okay, that makes sense as to why someone would just be like, I'm tired. I don't have it to give, but yet you took that. And somehow that's what amazes me because I've always tried to build you up and just talk about like the not so much potential. Again, like I'm just like this person is seeing you as like a little sister, but like a peer, like, man, you have so much to offer. Like we tried this, we tried that. And you kind of just went out and just did it with this podcast. And it's not just a podcast for a podcast. You weren't just talking about anything. Can you tell whoever's listening, the audience here, what were you focused on? That's the part I like about the podcast that you did.
Yes. So the podcast is called The Spotlight. And so when 2020 hit, it was hard for me. It was very hard. Like I said, I have been going through some things and I felt really closed off to a lot of people. And I did have a new community of friends that I spoke to almost every day. Basically, we had a Facebook community and we would meet in social settings and get to know each other and that type of thing. And while I was open to knowing about other people, I was not open to letting them know about me. So, so throughout 2020, these same people that were here and I knew all kinds of things about them, because we would kind of talk online, there were some things that I was able to reveal and not have to say it, and people would check on me and I would check on them. And all throughout the pandemic, we were meeting in a parking lot. I had a friend that started a business. And through that business, she was able to bring people together in a parking lot during a pandemic, when we were all nervous, we were afraid, we didn't know what was going on, and we still needed to have that people factor. We needed each other. And one night in November, it's coming up on almost a year. Maybe it was December. It was December because it was right before Christmas. And I'm like, we're out here in this parking lot, and we have our.
So this is, you said December 2020?
December of last year. We're out.
So this is prior to any of the vaccinations even being out, right?
So that's why we were still meeting in the parking lot. Y'all taking
like a big risk. Yeah.
Okay. We're meeting outside because we don't want to be inside. And, you can't even be inside really unless you go to somebody's house. And Yep. So we'd be in the parking lot. And I'm like, it's December. We're out here in this parking lot. It's cold, but we're here. We're supporting each other. We did like a circle of gratefulness, saying why we were grateful, the things we're grateful for. And I just felt so inspired by the community that we were able to form and the way we were able to support each other. And so I felt like I needed to keep talking to people and to keep hearing what their stories are. Like, how did you get to this point in your life? Most of them that I've spoken to so far, it's something that they did that I saw and it really touched me. So, for example, the first person was a friend of mine, James. And what he would do is he would create a playlist. And almost every day he would share a playlist of different music and people would start asking, hey, can you make a playlist for my birthday? I'm having an event. Can you make this playlist for my event? And he would do stuff like that. And I was like, wow, look at this. This is so crazy to me. He calls himself like an introvert. And, I would just stay in my basement and play video games. But we mess with him and we're like, you are no introvert. You're like a socialite on here. You need a socialite jacket because you have such a great personality and you're so caring and so supportive. And so that piece of it, that support from a community of people that I talk to every day, and I wasn't willing to share myself, but I was like, okay, well, now I have to give back to the community. And just hearing these stories keeps me inspired. Like I continue to see what's going on with people and what they're talking about, what they're doing. I'm just like, all right, somebody else needs to hear this because the way I'm getting inspired, other people might get inspired too. Exactly. So for 2021, like legacy has been such a big thing to me. Telling your story, sharing your experience. You just don't know who is going to hear that and be like, you know what? If she can do this and get to where she is, then maybe I could do it too. And that's what keeps me going with the podcast, and I have so many that I need to edit, but I am a one woman.
It's definitely the time consuming.
Yes, I'm a one woman show. It's a labor of love trying to fit it in between work and all of that. But, yeah, I'm happy to be on here talking to you because it's reinvigorating me. I'm like, I need to start making these edits.
And I think just with the pod itself, before I ask you another question, just what you mentioned, just in case anyone missed it, you talked about things that were going on with you, especially, loss of life. And that could be 5 years ago, it could be 4 years ago, but that trickle goes into everything. It will affect you to the point where maybe you don't even know how many years have passed by. Grief is a powerful thing. But what I got out of that is, and just looking at your podcast, and I love how each episode that you had released at the time continued to get better, whether it was the editing, whether it was the sound, whether it was not the editing, but the production altogether, it continued to get better and better. And actually the way you were featuring people, it seemed like you found comfort as well as inspiration from talking about other people and their success. It wasn't really focused on something you were doing. You were highlighting, like you said, the spotlight on them. And they were mostly local, right? To your either county or area,
yes, correct. Mostly local. And, I live in Prince George's County in Maryland. Mm-hmm. I live in Bowie. And that's another thing that's close to my heart. Our county is a majority Black county, and it's one that is in the metro area of DC. But you can see the difference between where I live and some of the other counties that are not majority Black. And it's just huge for me to highlight the positive things about the county. And so while I don't really talk about that on the podcast, I do talk about that on my social media channels, on the podcast social media channel, about the things that we have going on in the county, different restaurants we might have opening, all kinds of developments, cultural things, all that type of thing. Just things like that are really close to my heart, just to continue to build a community. I don't know what it is about. So I had this dream, and, like I said, I keep talking about legacy and community and that type of thing. And I had a dream, and I woke up just remembering the only thing from the dream was someone was telling me, I'm so proud that you're using your voice and encouraging me to keep on, saying you're doing a great job, just keep doing it. And I woke up so happy. Like, I don't even know who it was who said it to me. But I knew it was somebody that I loved because just how I felt. And so I was like, wow, I'm on the right path, whatever this is that I'm doing. That's the other thing too. I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants, right?
But I mean, you can say that, but I think in time it'll come together. And I think just, again, watching you grow as a person, the middle part, and even the beginning when I first met you, most of your conversations weren't about other people. They were about either, I'm not going to go into your business on this public forum, but I just feel like you were a younger person. Your thinking was younger. Your what you wanted to do with your time was younger thinking. And I think life and experience, you've given yourself time to grow. You didn't give up on yourself, and you found something which is, again, giving back in a different way, whether it's a podcast or just talking to people, meeting with people. You realize it's not about you. I think that's a positive thing that people should hear, that are going through all kinds of things. pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, whenever COVID really is gone, I don't know if that's ever going to really be a thing. I mean, the flu's still here forever. COVID will probably always be here. But the idea being not allowing your circumstances to define what your future or everyday will be. I feel like that's like the message from you that I've watched is there was a time when you allowed it, and not on purpose, but it consumed you.
Yeah.
It was winning. It was the defining thing of you. But now you've kind of just flipped the script and said, in a slow, methodical, not some kind of big, loud, I'm changing. You just did it. It wasn't something you were writing on Facebook or whatever, but you were just doing it. People who didn't know, like I knew because we were working together about the podcast coming together, they just saw an episode. Oh, Rose has got a podcast. And it's not the podcast that I'm trying to highlight. It's the idea that you refuse to allow life to control you.
So to that point,
you took it back.
To that point, like throughout my 30s, I constantly asked, like,
dang, how old are you? You didn't have gray hair when I met you.
I didn't. And now look, but listen, I'm proud of my grays.
At least you got hair. At least you got
exactly. But throughout my 30s, I would constantly question, why am I here? And it would really make me anxious and just nervous, right? Because I felt like there were so many other people walking in their purpose. And I didn't have that. I didn't have that feeling that what I was doing was what I should be doing. And so I really feel like for a long, long time, I defined myself by a job, right? What is the job that you do and your title and how much money you make and that type of thing. Yep. And not necessarily that I felt like I needed to be like this vice president making all this money type of thing. But just what I know now is that I needed something that I was connected to, which back then I didn't know what I needed. And so I was constantly searching and just not feeling fulfilled. And so I think the middle part that you're talking about, the middle part of Rose, my middle 30s, that is when I was like really searching and not understanding what it is that I needed to bring me fulfillment. And so I feel like that's now what I have found. And like you're saying, not just by doing a podcast, but by feeling like I'm helping be a resource, right? I'm helping being useful in that way. And not only that, like I've connected back with my church. We've talked about my church a lot. And my mom is a founder of the congregation that I currently go to. Right. And, she's been working in that church for years, since I was 5 or 6. I grew up in the church, and all the people that are there know me. They know my mom. They know my family. And I stayed away for a long time, and I knew what my mom did at the church, but to me, she was just my mom. And it wasn't like, oh, yeah, this woman came from another country and she helped start a congregation. And so last year.
And that other country is, people should know that, your heritage.
Yes, my parents are immigrants. They are from Nicaragua. They're from a place in Nicaragua. Well, my mom is from a place called Bluefields, Nicaragua. And then my dad is, like, they call it, he's from the bush. And I understand why they call it that now, because when I did go there, like you literally have to go in like a little, like you've seen those speedboats like in Thailand or something like that, those kind of boats. And you have to ride that up the river where you just see nothing but trees and whatnot. And then finally you come to this dock. And once you walk through the dock, that's where you see the town. And I'm like, wow. The first time I went, I was 19 and I wanted to go back home. Like, I don't want to stay here. Get me home. Right. But now I'm so happy that I got that experience, and I've been there several times since. And I'm happy that I was able to experience that, because that's a part of what shapes my view, right? What leads me to now understand the importance of the work that my mom did here, and having my dad's support doing that work. He didn't go to church with her, but he would, like, if she had to work, he would make sure that we went to church. That was important. Come on, you're going to church. You got to go to Sunday school. Like, we grew up in the church. And so I had been away, And last year, after George Floyd was murdered and the country just, we were in a pandemic, and then we were having this awakening, right? This awakening that we're not going to take this anymore. Like, I just felt such a calling inside me that I had to go do something. And so I reached out to the pastor of my church and I said, I would like to do something for Juneteenth. He's like, okay. And so I had maybe 3 weeks to plan something. And I've never planned anything like that before. I didn't even know how to do it, what to do. And I was terrified because you know me, I'm like processed and I got to have it all together. But I did not have anything together. And when I tell you, God sent me some angels to get this together, I'm not even making that up. Because anything that I would speak and say I needed, someone come in my path and bring me what I needed. Like I remember passing out flyers, and there was this woman that she walked up to me. She's like, "Hey, are you passing these out?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, we're doing the day after your Juneteenth event. My organization is doing Black Fathers, Black Lives Matter parade. And so if it would be nice if you have your congregation come to our event, and then we could come to your event, and I have these signs that you can have and you can give them out and that type of thing." So that was the type of support that I was getting without even knowing that I was going to get that. And I got it because I was speaking about it and I kept talking about it. And I was saying, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And people would just offer to help. And that really, that gave me like a renewal of faith, right? I understood what it meant to be a Christian with that. And I understood then what it meant to have faith. I understood a lot of like those trite verses that I didn't understand before, the peace that passeth understanding. Because like I said, the person I am, and not having something planned out would, like, I can't do it. I'm going to shut down and it's not going to get done. But I was able to keep going and be so peaceful about it because I was getting all this support. And I keep finding that that's happening over and over and over again. The more that I grow my own personal relationship with God, I feel that in me. And it's like something inside me so strong that keeps encouraging me. Oh yeah, keep talking, keep using your voice, and keep being a resource. And so I'm just glad I'm following that because again, I have a lot of peace about me that I didn't have before. And I feel like I'm walking in that purpose.
It had nothing to do with work. And I think what it did, just on the outside looking, it made you different at work in the sense of anything that was a negative at work, like everyone else has something at the work at their job that probably drives them crazy. Those things didn't bother you as much. They still were there. They still bothered you, obviously. They still would frustrate you. We talk about that. But to the extent that they were before, you knew work didn't define you. Wherever you work, not just Max, you needed something else a little deeper. And I think there are people who will hear this. Maybe if it's just one person, maybe if it's just me, maybe if it's just you saying it out loud to hear it again for yourself. It's encouraging to just keep going down that path of, you said, getting closer to God, number one. Number two, not making it about you. And not saying that you were ever a selfish person. When I say that term, not making it about you, just taking the time to do for others, whatever that may be, kind of makes you just look at life different. And I want to wrap this up with one question to you. What would you, because I could go into a lot of other different things, your networking you did, that wasn't usually who you were, and how you grew, relationships with other people. You kind of went into it looking for one thing that was, I won't say, I'm using the word selfish, but not in a bad way. Selfishly looking for benefits for you, and you found it to be even better. It wasn't what you thought it would be, and you've actually grown in that respect in terms of networking. But the question I want to kind of focus in on is this. If you were to have you, the 2015 version of you, that didn't know the tragedies that were coming ahead of you, that didn't know, and we don't know what's coming in 2021 or tomorrow morning, 2022 or tomorrow morning. The question is, based on who you are now, what would you tell the older you from 2015 to prepare them? That maybe it would have been a quicker adjustment for you, prior to anything happening that was negative on that scale of losing a family member, what would you tell that person? And could you answer it in a way that is also for someone listening that is in that state now? What would you tell that person?
That's what I would tell me. You need people. Plain and simple. You need people.
But I'm going to push back on it. Maybe you can clarify. I'm extending this a little bit longer, but you weren't, I would say, even in 2015 or 2011, I don't think anyone in the office would say Rose was a introvert. So what do you mean by that? Because you definitely were out there. We hear your laugh down the hallway on the second floor, third floor, fifth floor. You were, part of the office environment. So what do you mean by that?
Well, just like you're saying, I was a part of the office environment. I don't think anybody could have told you who Rose was. What does Rose do outside of work? What does she like? What things resonate with her? I don't think anybody at work, I don't even think maybe you could have answered that at that point. I was willing to hear what you had to say. And even sometimes I would just, I'm listening, but I'm half listening. And therefore, that's why I didn't connect, because then I just go home, that's work. Okay. Yeah. I listened to them talk and I was at work, but now I'm at home and I'm not thinking about people at work. I'm not thinking about what they told me about, what they're going through at home or anything like that. Like sometimes I'd even be like, oh, did you tell me that story before? And so I'm just a lot more engaged now. I want to be there. And I feel like a part of what started it again was what you said to me about being not a good friend. And when I looked back, I was like, yeah, he was absolutely correct. I was a terrible friend. I was not a good friend. And so that connection, you need that. You need people in that way.
Very nice, very nice. And I think you may not see it, but that is a perfect way to end this discussion. But again, you may not see the benefits of just having a discussion like this, but there's, again, one person that listens, maybe a coworker that we don't know listens, and they get to know you better, maybe understand why you are the way you are, for better or worse, but also, that you're available probably when someone, not if, but when someone else goes through something tragic. They'll know that there's a person that has gone through it, still going through it, and is still showing up not only to work, but showing up to life and not letting it define, not letting go, not forgetting, but not letting it define who they are and how they try to help other people. So I appreciate you sharing all that. And just in case anyone wants to find your podcast, where can they go back and listen to some of the episodes and kind of put pressure on you to release the other episodes? Where can they find any of those episodes of your podcast?
So right now we are on YouTube, The Spotlight. And then we're also on Instagram, The Spotlight DMV. So I'm looking forward to, I'm having some time off coming up. And that was a part of what I was going to do. I was going to edit some of my episodes and start putting them out there again. And just going back through, I learned a little bit from you, going back through and listening to some of the old ones and putting out some of the inspiring pieces. Sometimes you'd watch it back, you're like, oh, that part is fire. Like they were open and honest. That part is hitting me. And so I'm going to go back and listen to some of that and share it with people, because there were a lot of good nuggets in there.
Nice. I think people will appreciate it. And again, Rose, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for making me a better person, being part of my atmosphere and also being part of this podcast series. And I hope you personally enjoy watching yourself back and listening to yourself when this is available to everybody. I think it's an episode that is good for anyone that listens, and even the person, you, who was sharing the story. So thank you, Rose. Tell Darren I said hello. And I look forward to continuing our friendship beyond our work relationship, since I don't work there anymore, but I'm sure that won't be an issue.
Yep, thank you. And I appreciate you having me on here. This was a great discussion.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rose. And again, everyone, thank you for listening to In Your Atmosphere, and we'll see you in the next episode.